Hello and welcome to the Screen Stoop podcast. My name is MJ. This week I am flying solo, no Shelby. I tried to get my husband to watch and record the podcast this weekend, but he wasn't able to, so I guess I'm going to be forced to take a page out of Danny's book and fashion myself a dissociated identity just to get through this. The Crowded Room, episode 7, titled The Crowded Room. I feel like the episode should have been titled Eclipse. Bit of a missed opportunity there. The episode starts with everyone looking at the sky. Raya walks down a hall to the meeting room with Danny, and there is litter lining. Oh, I could do a little bit of alliteration here. Literally litter lining the light lavender linoleum floor on either side of the hall. That was a little bit lazy. Who works here? Why are you orderlies or guards or whatever just tossing trash on the floor indoors? So Raya's got the tape in her hand. The mystery solo shooting No Girl tape given to Raya by Detective Dinner No Sex Simp is going to be the catalyst for this episode. Everyone was looking at the sky because of an eclipse. Raya says Carl Jung in Rebirth. Raya is also nervous. She drops some stuff, most likely because she is about to crush Danny's reality. Raya is talking to Danny and she asks, "Do you trust me?" I hate it when characters say this. Like, I may have if you didn't ask right now. That question always precedes something, and I just hate it. Can we think of a new way to phrase? So we see the tape, big reveal that we called episode 1. Then Yahtzee Yitzhak Yakchik appears behind Danny and puts Danny's consciousness to sleep. Before Yahtzee shows up, Danny and Raya have a conversation about how this could be. And I personally was triggered by the whole rationalizing and justifying topic as if it is separate from Danny, purely because I have a borderline personality disorder parent, and the delusion, the rationalizing anything, it's really bad, or it can be. In BPD, you have what's called the queen or the hermit, and there's another personality. There's 4 big ones. But when I began going through puberty in 5th or 6th grade, my psycho mom somehow, in her messed up brain, saw herself in a constant competition with me. Jealousy, where any happiness in my life was vindictively taken away. Lots of abuse, always violent rage for nothing, unprovoked. Simply my existence was somehow taking away her shine. So I only experienced my mother as the witch, borderline, and in her mind, even aggressive, inappropriate violation of her young, scared, defenseless daughter was justified. And it's not okay. And my mom's family members would come to me and tell me, well, your mom is sick. But who is to say that every person, like Marlon touching Danny, that was sick too? So I'm just wondering, where does the justification end? It kind of all seems relative. The TV show is acting like what Marlon did is a travesty, but Danny is kind of excusable. How do you know Marlon isn't in his right mind? I wish that my husband was here to flesh out my point a little bit better and kind of bounce it off of him, but why are we almost saying, well, it's okay, Danny, for you to justify, but it's not okay for other people to justify? It appears that dissociative multiple personality disorder is different. I don't know if there's a good person under my mom. She turned almost everyone she's ever met into a, quote, enemy. Danny seems to only do that unintentionally, without thought or planning, but the action is still the same. He shot into a crowd of people, and the only reason that we're kind of, the movie or the book is choosing to treat him with kid gloves is because he really didn't hurt anybody. What if he would have killed 5 people? Would we still be treating him as if, yeah, the justification is not right, but it's more acceptable? Like we are with Marlon. What he did, because it caused Danny so much harm, is really, really bad. Danny could have potentially caused other people harm. He was in the situation to do it, and just by luck, he didn't. It seems to me that, although unfortunate, the priority should be keeping others safe so that no harm can be done to any bystander. When I started telling people what was going on with my mother, I should have been removed from the situation. Danny, although sad, should go to jail if he is a threat to the public. Marlon should also go to jail if he's a threat to the public. It's a sad and unfortunate reason, not something that anyone chose. I don't think my mother chose to have borderline personality disorder. I don't think Danny chose to have a multiple personality disorder. But we all have things that happen to us that we didn't choose. I have a bunch of psychosis because of the trauma that my mother inflicted on me. Danny has a psychosis because of the trauma that Marlon inflicted on him. It's sad, but that's the reality. And it's not that uncommon. And now it's my responsibility to take care of what goes on in my head and not hurt anyone else with it. Anyway, I'm still hoping for some dead bodies. Danny wakes up after the intro on the grass under an eclipse. I thought this was a nice shot, nice imagery. I'm a little bit upset that we needed Raya to say Carl Jung called an eclipse rebirth. I think you're spelling it out, treating us like we're 5. We would have got the imagery, but Danny turns around to face the barn of abuse. And when he looked over the edge of the interior, I thought that he was going to see my highly anticipated floating bodies. We did not. Instead, it was an unrealistically complicated, like Danny, puzzle of stairs and levels going seemingly infinitely downward. There's dripping water. I know my bodies are somewhere. There's lots of wood 2x4s and other construction work here. Home Depot made a killing off of Marlon's barn. Danny hears faint voices as he enters further. Danny turns into a room with a large open space, and Yitzhak in the center of the room underneath a light, a bit like he's being focused on by an alien abduction spaceship. Yitzhak is speaking to Raya as he is obviously selected in this moment. The other personalities are wandering around and watching. Jack is speaking to himself. It seems like he regrets allowing Raya to break the illusion. Mike and Johnny are scared. Raya is going to call the guards. Danny, as Yitzhak, in reality, is threatening Raya. He says, "You pissed me off." A little cringy. Tension is rising. The personalities in this main consciousness room start arguing, kind of through dialogue, letting the idiots in the back know what's been going on here since the very beginning. Mike then takes consciousness, and everything is fine. He just gets put back in his cell. Back in the barn, Brain, the imaginary friends, are just chilling. We get to see these private conversations between the personalities that have been going on since the sock drawer thing, and Mike and Johnny, and Yitzhak and Ariana. So since day one, Mike is in the back with the light, helping Danny crush it in a prison basketball game, consistent with the character setup all the way through the show. Jack and Yitzhak are drinking and playing cards in the foreground, discussing the shutout of Raya. Jack believes it's no longer productive, and Yahtzee says that he disagrees. Johnny is in the corner looking suspicious. Now, my husband would definitely be disappointed if I did not say, "Don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious." When Danny wakes up in his cell, he's acting like Johnny. We get to see the prison. Tom is very over the top with Johnny at this point. Like, I knew that he was the most outgoing, but I thought he was a little bit more subtle before. Is this a sign of him breaking down a bit, losing control? Is Tom acting a little too hard? I think it's super cute that Danny has been making deals for crayons. It's interesting that Johnny wants drugs instead. Is Johnny becoming more unhinged, spastic, and obnoxious because he's jonesing? In the weight room, Johnny gets the crap beat out of him, and Yitzhak wakes up. I love how the actor did that. Very safe and protective feeling. My favorite part of this scene is when Yitzhak's eyes open up and he runs to push Johnny out of the way, then dominates the fight. Jack disciplines Johnny, more evidence that he's kind of the subconsciousness leader here. Jack then steps forward to take over for Yitzhak, and Danny is then sent again to his cell. The guard says that his hearing is tomorrow, and now it's tomorrow. I love a lot of the story where Raya is doing stuff outside of the meeting room with Danny. Raya and Danny's attorney are getting ready to go into a hearing. I like how the attorney is a realist. He sees criminals and deals with judges and hearings and trials. He's contrasting to Raya's more optimistic and unrealistic perspective that a judge will care to hear out this completely novel psychiatric diagnosis and separate Danny from his actions, put him in a hospital, or treat him like a sick person. It's just highly improbable. And then I also like how that kind of finishes up when, during the hearing, Raya is shown to be very out of her depth and she does not understand the decorum and the proper way to go about things, and she makes herself look like an idiot, although she does blame it on Jack. She was unprepared for what was going to happen because she's not used to this environment, and the attorney was, and she should have deferred to him. Because although this attorney is a realist, he's not uncaring or apathetic to Danny. I love the line that the attorney says to Raya that everyone cares about how the situation will affect themselves and their image and their careers. Raya herself is pursuing this selfishly, or at least to her benefit. Getting Danny help will also be to his benefit, but Raya isn't doing this day in and day out altruistically. Now at the hearing, Dr. Whitman is introduced, and he is vastly overqualified compared to Raya. I really enjoyed the conversation around psychiatric disorders and this highfalutin doctor adhering to strict medical journals, never being open to anything new, closing his mind off to challenging data, which is not science. It's not a way to handle medicine, and it follows the poignant self-interest conversation about professionals caring more about their careers. This Dr. Whitman has a list of degrees and published works, blah, blah, blah. Anything new that is found contradicting or revising things that he has written that he makes money on is now useless if someone finds any new evidence or data. So the same thing happens today. In modern times, scientists, doctors, psychiatrists, archaeologists, paleontologists, whatever, they have an interest, monetary interest, one of the big three, money, fame, and power, on why they wouldn't want any new data or new evidence or new theories. And in fact, they will go out of their way to call any new thought or test or study impossible, irresponsible, or fake. Just look up the Boneyard, Alaska. I can't verify that that man is right and his evidence is true, but it's wrong for professionals in academia to reject his findings without any investigation because it would risk their careers or the careers of their colleagues or a cumulative corresponding wealth that they all have. Everyone is more focused on whether or not they look credible, not whether they are, but whether they appear that way. And challenging thought, challenging a position is a threat. Questions and hypotheses should not be scary. And I think that the TV show agrees with me by the fact that the doctor didn't even go and speak to Danny. He doesn't want to know. He said he knew everything that he needed to because he's so smart and he already read all of Raya's notes. And this is why people are scared of their qualifications being questioned or their credibility being questioned, because that judge took him just having more school or having more papers or awards or being higher regarded as a more trustable, reliable source than Raya, who has actually spoken to this patient. It's just ass backwards to me, but it is a good telling or showing, demonstrating of how reality is. Danny then enters the chat after Raya argues with Dr. Whitman. Danny is obviously Jack now. Raya whispers and then states, "That is not Danny." I thought it was very humorous that Jack described Ariana and Yitzhak as cats. The hearing is over, everything moves on as planned, and Danny's attorney goes to discuss with the prosecution or the DA. I am definitely on the side of female diamond blouse district attorney. I don't think she was disrespectful to Danny in any way when she had an interaction with him, and I think that she made a really great point in their conversation. Danny should not get a free pass or a deal. He should go through the process like everybody else has to. 100% concur. Bad things that are unfair, things we can't control, the cards were dealt, it's all varying amongst individuals. You can't compare or say my issues are worse than yours. As a society, we can acknowledge the unfairness of life, but the individual, in this case Danny, still must be held accountable or judged and serve punishment for what he did with this life, as others should be judged and serve punishment for what they do with this life, their actions. Danny's ledger cannot be wiped clear because life wasn't fair to him, because as this district attorney states, life isn't fair to a lot of people. I get through it by saying, honestly, every day, I'm a blip in the span of time. Anyway, memento mori, I'm gonna die in 5 minutes. So life really matters because it's so fleeting and short, but it also doesn't. Like, whatever happens here, it's gonna be over so fast. And I just mentioned that because that's how I get over the whole life isn't fair thing. Life has been less fair to you than it has someone else, but also your life has been better than someone else's as well. So, like, why even focus on that? Just live it. Another tangent, as usual. Sorry about that. The personalities sit in a chair circle and debate how to proceed best. Jack is pro go to big scary prison. Yitzhak pitches the compassionate and self-sacrificial alternative, die, for Danny. Let him be in control now. Jack's response to the idea is to kill Yahtzee. And although I will miss him the most, big, lovable guy, and wonderful actor, I'm happy I won't be disrespectfully mispronouncing his name anymore. Jack's rationale is that he killed Yahtzee for him, for Danny. And now we have our big antagonist. Oh my gosh, Ariana is here. She wakes up Danny. Why doesn't Ari play with the other personalities? Was the show just kind of trying to keep her in the back so that the real people who were not paying attention did not understand that she also was a subconscious creation? Or is she never here on a regular basis? Ariana breaks the illusion to Danny. Everyone minus Yahtzee is here. I'm tired of saying that we were right since episode 1, perfectly calling everything. All I can do is hope that we find some dead bodies and... Oh, look! Ariana is taking Danny somewhere down further into the Barn Psyche subconsciousness allegory. Danny is stepping in water and... Darn it, frick. I can't believe it. Well, it doesn't happen very often, folks. Only 3 to 8 times per day. I was wrong, and my husband was right. Applause to him. I was hoping Danny was a real, true crime serial killer, but I was incorrect, and Shelby was right. Jack is the murderer, the true killer of imaginary friends, and those are the bodies that are in the water. I can't wait to sit on the couch with him and rewatch this episode that I've already seen and have him jump up and down in his seat saying, I told you, point at me and laugh and smile his big, stupid, beautiful smile. Jack is the personality ripper, the dissociation executioner. These are atrocious monikers, but I'm not very creative right now, and I'm just leaving them in. So I'm actually happy that I'm going to have the opportunity to go back with Shelby and rewatch this, because Jack explains that Adam saved Danny from Marlon, but the manifestation of Adam presented before Marlon came into Danny's life, and I question if this is a continuity mistake or a comment on the predisposition of psychosis. The belief that underlying traits or a genetic component that only surface or are essentially turned on, triggered by trauma, then reinforced by the positive shielding of Danny by Adam. So Danny's mind expanded more or continued to protect him more and more. Very similar to anxiety and worry. If you're right 10% of the time, your anxiety will only intensify because it remembers when it saved you more powerfully than when whatever it was afraid of didn't actually happen. So an anxious person without intervention will just continue to become more and more anxious because their subconscious highlights the moments the anxiety protected them, and it underregards the times that it only made life more unnecessarily difficult and stressful, ultimately miserable. That's why the only practical non-medicinal cure for, say, agoraphobia would be to go outside, or a fear of elevators would be to go in an elevator and ride it. Jack here is explaining to Danny that he believes if he and the other personalities of Danny were to die, then Danny would too die. Very preservationist. Very anxiety-ridden. Jack seems to be Danny's deepest manifestation, and he is being portrayed antagonistically now because of that. Raya scolded him after the hearing, he shot Yitzhak, now he's justifying to Danny, manipulating him with the idea that if you kill me, you die too. Jack convinces Danny to step into the light and remove all ties to Raya. As Danny wakes up, I'm wondering what happened to those contraband crayons. Raya walks into the meeting room monologuing to Danny, who she believes is Jack. The episode ends when Danny cries and pleads to Raya, please help him with the voices in his head. All right, episode 8 is titled Reunion. I believe it will be a standoff between Raya and Jack on who gets Danny. Will Raya pull Danny out and keep him in the light, which would be a supremely easy and short-fought victory considering how deep Danny's psychosis is? Or will Jack continue to prevent Danny from being in control of himself? Jack will probably take down a few more identities. I think Johnny probably has to go. Jack might kill Ariana or attempt to get rid of Ariana, and either that loss breaks Danny to then eliminate Jack, or Danny will save Ariana just in time and then remove Jack. For some reason, I feel like the show really likes Ariana and wants us to like Ariana. I was much more interested in Ariana when I thought she was like the psycho part, the killer, the darkness. This isn't the worst show in the world. If anything, it's thought-provoking and inspires conversation, even with yourself, as I am having now. It's moderately enjoyable. I'm not chomping, or is it champing, at the bit on Friday mornings. Friday mornings, I do have other stuff. TBI, brain damage treatment rehab at the hospital. That is a much bigger focus. So maybe the show isn't to blame for that, but I don't know. If I'm going to choose Bob's Burgers new episode or this, The Crowded Room gets an L. Seasons 1 through 4 of Vampire Diaries or this, still an L. Gordon Ramsay Food Stars or this, an L. I wish Shelby was here so maybe he could contradict me or add to my opinion. Hopefully I'll get the opportunity to ask him next week or remember to ask him next week. If you made it through all this, I genuinely appreciate you. Thank you for listening to my stupid solo ramblings of The Crowded Room episode 9. Hopefully I'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.